Now guys, you would have thought that if you've got a target up there in the shape of a rabbit, that might act as a deterrent, but not to this guy. Can you see him right at the base of the silver bush there? Hello. Now, the last video that I made with the Crossman multi-shot Trailhawk, I shot it open sights and I had a whale of a time. I really enjoyed it. And at that point there, for me, it was enough. I didn't really think that I needed to, create another video on this air rifle. However, there's always a however. I've had a few posts on that video and a few comments saying that it would have been nice to see the rifle shot with the scope that's included in the box. And I thought to myself, yeah, okay, fair enough. It really should have been shot with that scope because it is an all-round package and I've not done a full review. So that's what I'm going to do today. I've got the scope in the bag. I'm going to show you how I fit it, and this is more towards those guys that are brand new to the sport and haven't dealt with springers and with scopes in the past. So a little bit of, not an educational video, not at all. It's more about tips and the sort of things that I do, and one thing that you need to really ensure that you get right from the off, otherwise it's not going to lead to disaster, but it will affect your accuracy going forward. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this video comes with a warning, and I'm going to say that again, a warning. Beware. As soon as you fit a scope on a break barrel that has open sights, you risk losing the fun factor. What do I mean by that? Right, shooting open sights is a skill that you need to develop. If you haven't done it, spend some time doing it because it will teach you a lot about hold, about how to aim. There's a little bit of speed shooting there as well. It's just fun. As soon as you put a scope on an air rifle, expectations change. You've got this optic. It's designed to make, I guess, your shooting more accurate, but with that comes a cost. And depending on the type of air rifle that you get, especially with regards to break barrels and springers, if they're not of a high enough quality, with regards to build quality that is, then you could be opening yourself up to a whole load of disappointment. And the reason why I say that is that when you mount the scope on the rifle, the scope is mounted to the cylinder, okay, the top of the cylinder, and effectively this unit is independent of the barrel. And what that means is that unless this housing, this breech, is machined accurately and is as snug a fit as it could possibly be, when you break the barrel, okay, and then you put it back into place, if there is any movement whatsoever in this hinge point, then it's going to affect your accuracy. With open sights, it doesn't matter so much because the sights are on the barrel. So no matter where this ends up, once you've closed the barrel, it hasn't affected your sights. So it's not going to change. you know, it can be canted right over to the right hand side, but you're still sighting down the barrel, so the pellet is still going to go in the same place. However, because you're now looking for a scope that's mounted to the cylinder, if that barrel moves slightly left or right or up and down because it's not seated in exactly the same place, your accuracy is going to be affected. So that's the warning, guys. That's what you risk whenever you put a scope on a brake barrel. Now, there are some purists out there that, you know, have really nice brake barrels and extremely well engineered. You know, you've got the likes of Viroc Classic. Their brake barrels are so well made, it's just phenomenal, you know. And there are some other mates out there that are exactly the same, and because the breech block is solid, one piece, machined so precisely, each and every time you break the barrel and you close the barrel, it relocates in exactly the same position, so you don't have that worry of accuracy. But on the less expensive models, for the most part, the machining isn't necessarily as good, and there are some that are downright appalling, even on the more expensive brake barrels that are out there. And you just have to look at some of my previous videos and you'll see what I mean. So there we are, guys. That's my warning over and done with. That's me trying to explain why fitting a scope on this may either do it wonders or may completely kill my experience of shooting it. And it could be the same for you, so just bear that in mind. With open sights, fantastic, you have so much fun. But again, once you put that scope on the back, your expectations are so much higher than they were before, it might let you down. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's fit the scope on this Crosman multi-shot Trailhawk. Okay, so first things first, let's get it out of the bag and let's see what we've got. Excuse me, got a bit of a frog in the throat. Now, I've got to make sure that I don't lose this packaging, because again, this air rifle has been very kindly lent to me by Mark from Guns R Us in Sheffield. Very helpful chap. If you want any info, you know, just give him a call. Easy to find online. As I say, it's Guns R Us at Sheffield, and he's got some fantastic deals, he really has. And you can buy air guns as package deals, so you know, if you've got a PCP, he quite often includes a foot pump with it. He may include a gun bag, some other accessories. Have a look, it's certainly worth it. So I'm just going to put this bag here, and my apologies, I'm just kind of diving into this. In the package, there's an Allen key, okay, or a hex key, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to put that there, that's safe, that's safe. And what I've done is I've also got my Allen keys, my set here, in case I don't get on with this. No reason why I shouldn't. So, just taking this out of the package. And again, guys, you know, with the new formats of these videos, I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy them. Let me know if you don't. Let me know if there's anything that I can improve. It's obviously it all helps, but I'm just enjoying it, you know. So, first thing that you need to do when you look at any sort of included scope, have a look at the mount at the bottom. And what you're going to see there at the back of the mount is a retaining pin, but that's not protruding from the mount itself. It's actually flush with the base of the mount. Now that retaining pin needs to locate in a hole at the top of the cylinder there to prevent there being any scope creep every time you shoot the air rifle. Now what I mean by that is that within a spring gun, there's a piston that's forced forward with, you know, a lot of pressure. and as that hits the end of the cylinder and bounces back, there's what we call recoil, and that recoil can put a lot of force on the mount, and it can actually shake the scope back. So that's the whole point of this retaining pin. So it's really, really important that that is located in the hole at the top of the slot. And by the way, guys, on top of this Crossman, we have a dovetail rail. It looks like an 11mm dovetail rail, which is quite standard, and we've got a one-piece mount. So first things first, we need to take the scope off the mount to access that retaining pin, and let's get on and do that. Very simple. So let's see how tight they've done this. Not so bad. And of course I'm outside, so I'm having to be very careful that I don't drop any of these hex screws, or bolts should I say. And you've got 4 in each of the what do you call them actually, these? The whole lot's called a mount, but I want to call it a cradle cover, cradle cap. Anybody knows? Let me know. I've only been doing this for 40 odd years. You would have thought I'd know by now. Drop me a comment in the or drop me a note in the comments below, and just let me know what the actual term is for these covers. The one thing that was told to me many, many moons ago by my very, very good friend Graham, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and he's the guy that brought me into shooting. And funnily enough, well, not funnily enough, but I'd been shooting for many, many years with air guns prior to actually meeting Graham. Met him on a building site, and I was a site manager there. He was a bricklayer, and we went out pigeon shooting, and then found out that he's actually got a pheasant shoot, and you know, we kind of really got on very, very well, and from there we had a relationship, a friendship that was just phenomenal, and we did, you know, we got up to all sorts of things. So anyway guys, I've separated the mount, it's off the scope. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to slacken up these side screws. They don't have to come off, it's just going to make it easier when it comes to locating that. So you can see that that's now nice and loose, and in the cradle of the rear mount, in the cradle to the rear of the mount, you'll see a hole where you can slip the hex key in, and you can start to locate that retaining pin. See it there? Alright, so first off, what we're going to do, just going to put that in line. That feels like it's coming in place. And we're going to put this back in there. Just try and locate it again. Okay. Just going to go a little bit further. Tricky little bugger. Make sure I've got it in the right place. I'm having to just free up that bolt a little bit more so I can get it located. Come on, where are you? Yeah, that's got it. Right. Now, I'm not going to push in too far. I just want to make sure that that retaining pin is located. You can feel it there. I'm going to guess roughly where the center point is, so it's all located nicely. And then I'm going to tighten up these side screws. And whenever you've got kind of 4 screws, what you want to do is get an even pressure across the whole plate. So you don't just screw up one first. Do them kind of randomly, and make sure that plate clamps on nice all the way through, so it's nice and even. You can see there's a bit of movement there, so we're going to start to tighten this up now. Now, with regards to the bottom plate, the bottom mount, that needs to be locked on firmly, okay? You need to put some pressure on it. I'm just going to screw this in a little bit more. That's locating itself nicely. And I'm going to put some pressure on these. The bottom mount, nice and tight, because you don't want that to move. But one thing that, going back to what I was saying about Graham, what he taught me was that you have to understand with the actual scope tube itself, that's quite delicate. So if you over tighten it when it comes to mounting the scope on the cradle, as it were, then you can crimp the tube, you can deform it. And that becomes a problem. Right, that's solid. Okay, I'm not using a torque wrench. I've never used a torque wrench. On the high-end scope, oh, sorry, I'll get back down there. So, let me just say that again. I've never used a torque wrench, but on the high-end scopes that are very expensive, it's an idea to do that. I like to basically do everything kind of finger tight without too much pressure, and it depends how I use the Allen key or the hex key. So, if you're using it with a horizontal part, sorry, the long part grip between your fingers, there's a lot more leverage. So on the base plate, yeah, fine. Use that, tighten it in, put a bit of pressure on it. Not too much, because you don't want to strip the thread off of the screws. That's solid, that's not going to go anywhere. When it comes to mounting the actual scope on top, I'll get rid of these covers. This tube is delicate, so what we don't want to do is over tighten the clamp onto the actual mount itself. Now, what we seem to have here, if you look at it, the actual turret mounts, the housing of the adjustment there, what you know, all the gearing here, is a little bit forward of the center of that post, of the center of that tube, sorry. Making a right hash of this explanation, my apologies. So it means to say that if that was more central, I would have more forward and backward movement. Unfortunately, it's limited by this space here with regards to my eye relief. So I'm just going to have a quick look. Be careful now, because there's nothing holding this, so you don't tip the gun. Let me just... Okay, that feels about right for me. And what I'd say to you is, if this was an expensive setup where I really wanted to make sure that everything was bang on, what I would do is probably put a spirit level on the rifle, okay, and then on the scope, and make sure that the bubbles are perfectly in line and perfectly equal, so they're both showing the same reading. But with this, because it's more for fun and we're not going to go too scientific on it, it's enough that you eye it in, and when you look at the vertical reticle within the scope, just eye it so that it is vertical. It's not cant, it's not leaning left or right, okay, because then that can affect your point of aim. Doesn't mean to say that you can't adjust for it, because you can adjust for everything. The brain is incredible, and when you look down the scope, you know, if it is on an angle like this, you understand that the pellet is going to drop, you know, with gravity. So your reticle can be at 30 degrees, at 45 degrees, okay, any which way, but you understand always that your pellet drops vertically, you know, with gravity. Obviously there might be some sideward movement, but that's down to windage. But with regards to general basic principles, without going too scientific, if you bear that in mind, it doesn't matter if you cant your rifle left or right, right or left, but that pellet's always going to fall in the same line. It's not going to follow the line of the rifle. So when it comes to actually sighting the target through the scope, if your reticle's on an angle, okay, you can still make that adjustment. Your brain can still work out, okay, it's going to drop and it's going to drop so far below the crosshairs. All right, it's just, once you've been shooting, you'll get to know what I mean. So you don't have to be too pedantic about it, okay? So long as when you put the scope on the rifle, that looks as if the vertical post is vertical and not leaning. And it's always a good idea just to kind of move your head back a little bit and check to see that line. Is it dropping down the center of the rifle? If it is, then we're all good, you know? Don't need to mess about too much. Again, initially it's about the enjoyment factor. Now, as you get more experience and you want to fine tune everything, well, then depending on your shooting style and how it is that you're going to shoot, yeah, you might spend a lot of time adjusting that optic to be specific to you. That's a fact. You know, people do like to meddle, they do like to go to the nth degree, but then there comes this point where they start to blame, in my opinion, they start to blame the equipment and not necessarily themselves and their ability to shoot and to make those adjustments, okay? It's, you know, everything has got to be bang 100% so that there's no, you know, they can't blame anything else, if you know what I mean. But there's always human error, so bear that in mind. Anyway, let me have another quick look. I'm being careful not to tip this. Yep, it's mounting, it's looking, I'm actually quite happy with that. I'm going to make a slight adjustment. Yeah, from what I can see, that reticle is vertical. That's all I need. So we're going to put the caps back on, or the covers. And when you put these covers back on, you'll note that you'll probably see it here. There's movement there. This has actually got a gap of about, what's that? 3 mil there, 3.5 mil from my side. So let me just show you on your side there. You see this gap here? Well, two reasons why that's there. One is because inside the actual cover, there's a tacky kind of lining that helps to keep the scope in place within the mount. So it's like a low tack adhesive. And also it helps when the clamps don't meet fully to be able to actually tighten down onto the mount itself. So we're going to put the screws in now. Never done this in front of the camera before, so apologies. And what I'm doing is very, very loosely at the moment, putting these hex screws in. And I'm going to do the same on the rear one as well. Before I tighten anything up, I'm just going to get them located. And you can see now, possibly, let me just turn that camera, that angle better. You can see how far back the scope is in relation to this front mount. It's very nearly on the part where the tube starts to expand. And what we want to make sure is that the actual mount stays within the tube and not where it's, how can I put this? The flat part of the tube, not where it starts to rise, because then it can cause damage to this outer part. So just be careful how you actually position it. So they're located for the time being. I'm going to locate the back four, and I'm going to do the same now. I'm not going to tighten down on the first ones until the back lot are in place. And the reason for that is because if there is a slight discrepancy, more so on mounts that are independent as opposed to a solid mount like this, but if there's a slight difference in height, if you clamp down on the front or on the back first without checking how it's sat in that cradle, it can crimp or bend the tube. so be careful about that. And what you're going to notice now is that I'm going to use the hex key in a different format, in a different way. So no longer am I holding it by the long part, I'm now going to be holding it by the short part, because that's going to ensure that I don't put too much pressure on the actual screws when I'm tightening them up. And I'm going to do this in diagonals. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go on the back left first, and I'm just going to tighten up a little bit so it catches. And the idea is that that gap that I was saying, where the top cover meets the bottom cradle, I want that to be balanced and even on both sides. So I'm going to use my fingers just to roughly guess. I don't need to see, but I can feel that there's a slight gap on this side, slight gap on that side, and on that diagonal one I'm just going to catch it, this one here, going to catch it and back. So I've done diagonals, that one, that one, that one, that one, so that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay, and all I've done is I've nipped them up, and it's really, really loose for the time being. I'm going to do the same on the back. So again, I'm just feeling with my fingers to see that I've got a relatively even gap. Don't need to look so much. And again, working on diagonals. So now loosely, that's bedded nice and evenly. And if I show you one side, so you can see there's a gap there, and there's a similar gap here. Now we start to tighten up a little bit. So again, like I said, I'm not using the Allen key or the hex key with the wide parts. Really, really important, because I don't want to crimp or compress that tube. So let's just start putting a bit of pressure on. And we're doing it so it's nice and even. Going through all of them. And you know, once you get to the point where it stops and you can feel that pressure in your fingers, it's almost not painful, but you can feel that you've got a fair bit of pressure. That's all you need. And that's going to hold them. What I will say is that after you've shot it, maybe 100 times, go back and check your mounts. Okay? So she's on. That's it. She's not going anywhere. Comfortable. Really easy. Okay, that's not going to move. Solid. Absolutely solid. One last check. And what I will say is that I'm glad that I've checked now, because, and this is going to be really annoying, I should have done this before, so you know, my mistake, but you get to see what I'm doing here and how I've messed up. If I look at the actual seating of this bottom mount, and I didn't check it because I'm talking to the camera, you know, but hey, we're human, aren't we? We make mistakes. It's not seated properly. It's actually that retaining pin has pushed the mount up, so the cover plate is seated, this side of the mount isn't. Okay? What that means now is that everything that I've just done has got to be undone and reworked. So let's start again, shall we? But there's no point trying to actually continue with it as it is at the moment. It feels tight, but it's just not going to work. So there we go. And I've been doing this a long time and I still make mistakes. But that's the whole fun of this. Let's loosen that up. So what I'm going to do, rather than bore you guys to tears, I'm going to switch the camera off in a second, and I'll switch it back on again once I've got it mounted properly. Okay, and we can go from there. Okay guys, so just putting everything back together again now. The mount is securely fitted to the top of the cylinder. I'm just tightening up these top screws, but there is a problem. and I'll explain what that problem is in a second. And this is where it comes down to the quality of workmanship. So when, obviously first attempt, the base plate to the mount wasn't located properly on the Picatinny rail. Okay, so I'm happy they're tight now. One last little turn. Yeah, these aren't going to go anywhere. Right, okay, done. Okay, so when I looked at the mount previously, it wasn't sat in line with the top of the cylinder. Okay, so it was cant, it wasn't actually hooking on properly. So the base plate has now been mounted as it should be. However, when you actually look at the positioning of that mount on top of the cylinder, it's not perfectly vertical. It's not 90 degrees to the top of the cylinder. It's actually off at an angle. And what that means is that this whole scope now is leant over to the left of the rifle by about, I would guess, 3 or 4 degrees. So I'm actually now, when I look down this, I'm trying to explain this to you so you can see it properly. When you look at the line of the rifle itself, the scope is slightly over by, I would say, in the region of 7 or 8 mil over to the right hand side, so it's not going directly over the barrel. Now that could have issues with the fact that if the barrel's pointing that way and the scope's pointing this way, probably still be able to adjust the scope to run in line with the barrel to a certain degree, but it might be on its limits. We'll give it a go. Now, the next thing that I like to do with these turrets is I like to make sure that they're centered before I start shooting. What I mean by that is I'm going to screw them all the way in, and that's about there now. And funnily enough, it's got marks on the actual turret, but there's no kind of reference point on the housing of the gears here in order to be able to line the 0 up with a mark. So that's something to bear in mind. But let's just count how many revolutions it will go round now as I go. Let me turn that round as I go round the other way. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, so 7¼ revolutions, which is quite a lot actually. That mark that I was talking about has now become evident on the actual riser, where the screw cap kind of hides it as you start to wind it in. So I'm going to bring that back down now, about 3. That's a bit of a bugger. I'm going to go down 4 revolutions in order to get it to a center line. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that turret's roughly center. I'm going to do the same on the windage. I'm going to wind it all the way in. About there. Okay, and then we're going to wind it all the way out. So that's 1 revolution, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, same again. So I'm going to bring that in 4 revolutions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Parallax. Well, I'm shooting at 40 meters. So this has got an adjustable objective lens, and there's a grading on there. By rights, these numbers should relate to meters, unless it's on yards. Well, it's a 1/4 inch MOA, so it could be on yards. I'm going to guess halfway between 30 and 40. Sorry, between 30 and 50 there. That's 40 meters. So what's that in yards? About 45 yards. You can go a little bit more there. Happy with that. Okay, next thing I guess is to shoot it and see how we get on. Okay, well, I've got a slight confession to make. Not a slight confession. I made a boob on my last video with regards to this air rifle. I said that the magazine was a 10 shot. I believe I said it was a 10 shot. It's actually an 11 shot. So yeah, my apologies if I misled anybody. 11 shot, 177. I believe it's a 10 shot on the 2.2, but I could be mistaken there because I've not seen it, so it may well be that that's an 11 shot as well. Anyway, the magazine's full. The last slot is empty, so it fits over the breech. Because I've absolutely no idea. Oh, hang on a sec. Not sure what's gone on there. There we go, it's clicked in. Because I've absolutely no idea where this rifle is shooting at the moment, I've just got a cardboard box, probably about 8 or 9 meters away. I'm going to aim center of that box and see if I'm anywhere near, and then I can make an adjustment on the scope and just bring it out and stretch it out a little bit. So first shot, I'm going to aim for the center of the box. Let's see where we're at. Okay. So currently shooting low and slightly to the left, so I'm just going to make some adjustments here very quickly. And okay, I'm going to try another one. Put it into the center of the box. There's a crease there that's convenient. Not far off, still a little bit low, so I'm just going to adjust that again. And I'm shooting a bit to the left. Okay, I'm going to aim for that same pellet. And that's still showing me as being a little bit low, but we'll try it again. Just a bit more of an adjustment. Same hole. So okay, now that was 4 shots. That's enough to get me roughly where I need to be, but obviously I'm shooting out at 40 meters now, so I'm going to try and put a pellet on paper. Again, there's no camera down there at the moment until I see exactly where this is shooting. and then what I'll do is I'll get a camera in there and we'll fine tune this a little bit more. Okay, let's try that. So it's left-hand piece of paper. Get it in the focus. That's in focus. So is that. Let's zoom in a little bit. Right. Let's see if we can get it on the target. Okay. I've hit paper, but I'm high, right on the leading edge of it, so I need to just bring my scope down a tad. Right, let's see if we can get closer to that green dot. Alright, so it's perfectly in line with the dot. It's shooting about, I would say, 1.25 inches low. So I'm just going to drop my reticle a tad. Try one more. I felt that I pulled that one. Yep. So I'm shooting the first, well, the shot prior to this was about 2 inches high. Now I'm 1 inch high. I'm just going to make an adjustment. And let's see. So I'm right height, but shooting over to the right now, so it's kicked a little bit. Okie dokie. Well, I think it's time we do a pellet test. I'm going to get the camera down there and let's see whether we can show you how this performs. Okay. So I've got the camera recording down the bottom there, and I'm on the paper, but it is spread quite a bit. Now 40 meters with this Springer may well be pushing it, but I want it to, you know, to be a realistic review. So let's see how it goes. Now, if I can't group it with this, then it might just be that I'm pushing it too far beyond its capability, and then there is no point in trying to get a group test with or a pellet test with all the others. Let's just see how it performs. I might be doing this rifle a misjustice, so it might do very well. But what we're going to do on the right hand piece of paper, top left hand target, let's see if we can put a group anywhere near that target. This should be fun. On paper, but only just. Well, we win the square. We will win. We're within the square that's surrounding the target. Okay. What I am experiencing now, what I'm definitely feeling is the pull on the trigger. It's becoming quite hard, but let's try another one. Quite close to the last shot. Okay. I don't know if you picked that up, but that was a sparrowhawk that just flew by. There we go. Let's try this last shot. Right. That was the Air Arms Diablo field. So let's go for some Norma Golden Trophy field trials. We'll put 5 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try the next target over. I think I might have hit the ball with that. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think close. Maybe a bit below it. That was just outside at sort of 1/2. Okay. Last shot. Well, I mean, they're not pellet in pellet. Let's not kid each other here. They're absolutely not. But I guess it can be worked on, that's for sure. Let's try the JSB Match Diablo Exacts 8.44 grain, which we know is a lie, because if you're lucky you might get one 8.44 in 1 in 4. Oh, that's a dodgy pellet. The skirt's buggered up on that one. Skirt's buggered up on that one. Three, 4. Right, last one, 5. We'll go top right hand target. Please don't hit my camera. Please don't hit my camera. No idea. Try that one again. Really have no idea where I'm shooting from here. Scope's only got 9 times magnification, and the reticle in truth is quite thick compared to high-end scopes, so it's covering a little bit and I'm not sure exactly where I'm hitting. I'm outside of the target on the right, I think. I'm having to concentrate so hard in squeezing this trigger, just making sure that I don't snatch it. Yeah, these are all going right at the moment. Okay. Finally hit paper. Well, the other one did as well, but okay, they were all shooting way to the right. Let's try the QYS's. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this will be centre left, or middle left, should I say. Bottom left hand corner of the square that's containing that target. Right, I'm just moving my mic down here, so hopefully you can still hear me. Left hand side, just getting me magnet. Okay, so that was the right height, it's just way over to the left. Again to the left. It's incredible how these pellets can vary so much between brands as to point of impact. Okay, closer. I think that's the last one, I'm not sure. Yeah, not great. Right. So, I guess when it comes down to it, you know, whoever buys this air rifle will have to get used to it. The trigger needs work. It's very kind of stiff, and I'm really kind of over focusing on the trigger to make sure that I get a nice even pull and not snatch. So that's not ideal. So next up we've got the Remington Thunder Barracudas. These were the ones that I was using, these are the ones that I was using when I was shooting the rifle with open sights. So we're going to go for the centre target now. Okay, shooting to the left at the right elevation. Same distance to the left, but lower. Not sure where that went, whether it went way over to the left hand side, I believe. Don't know where that one's gone. Okay, and that touched the third shot. Second or third shot. Right. So, next up we've got the Webley AccuPels. We'll see how these perform. There we go. Now my, oops, get that over there, last one in. My caliber gun snipe absolutely loved these pellets. So let's see how the Warhawk does. Is that on? Yeah, that's safe. So we're going to go middle right. Again, slightly to the left. Oh, I might have two pellets almost touching there. Somebody shooting pigeons in the background. Not sure about that one. And that's the last shot, I believe. Yeah, I'm going to have a look at the camera to see where that one's going. So, what we got? Next up, we've got the Bisley long range golds. Oops, come on. There we go. This magazine has like a reset button here. If you press it in the center, it will allow the spring to go back the last position, so that's quite handy. But it's weird because where the pellet actually seats within this mechanism here is if it's a short pellet, it can drop a little bit too deep into it, so it clashes with the back plate. That's just something to bear in mind. Okay, so like I say, Bisley long range gold, we'll go bottom left hand target. Way over to the left. Now I don't know whether this is going to work or not, but I am going to try and talk through the process of squeezing this trigger. It is, like I say, very stiff. I don't like the bottom right hand edge of it because it is digging into my finger. I'm not sure if you can see the pressure points here. So I'm catching it with that part of my finger. It's just making me having to think about it a little bit too much, and it's quite stiff. So looking at the target now, I'm on the target, I'm just squeezing the trigger. I've got to first stage. Sorry, I'm going to do that again. So I'm at first stage. Now I'm going to gently squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And away it went. But again, I think I'm shooting over to the left. Might have hit the black ring there. Last one. Yeah, that's kind of spread all over. So not great with those. Next up, Diana High Powers. Now, it was set to rain. We had a 50% chance of it raining around about now, so I'm hoping to get these last pellets shot before it starts to rain. Well, that's 2 people out there shooting. Obviously the pigeons are coming in quite a bit. So we go for bottom middle target. And it's the small one. That's very bottom left edge of paper. Similar sort of place. Yeah, it's all heading down that way. Last one. Not good. All right, okay, so the last pellet's going to be the H&N field target H&N field target trophies. Why can't they just give them a simple name? It's such a mouthful. What's the point? God, I'm getting old. I'm like Victor Meldrew, I reckon. If you guys can remember who he was. For you youngsters, check him out. He's a right moaning old fart. And that's what my wife believes I am. Right, okay. Let's see if the rain will hold off for us. Bottom right hand target. No idea. Oh, close to the target, close to the ball. A bit of a surprise. I'm in the right area. Okay. That sounded odd, for sure. Right, where am I at? Okay. Okay, so obviously nowhere near the same performance as a PCP, and just struggling a little bit there to try and get any sort of a group whatsoever. But let's go and have a look at the paper and see how we're doing. Well, actually, I'm quite surprised at that. That last group weren't too bad at all. And there are some that, you know, obviously not so bad. Again, not so bad. But no real groups as such. I think it's going to be a case of trying to fine tune it, whoever's got it, but you do need to work on that trigger, that's for sure. It's just too kind of unpredictable, and it's quite firm. Anyway guys, at that there's no point me trying to do an accuracy test because you can see the results there. And on that note, I'm going to call it a day on this review because it's just literally starting to rain now as well, and there's no point me trying to do an accuracy test with that. You can see how the groups are performing, not great. So yeah, hope it's been informative, hope you've enjoyed it. It kind of petered off towards the back end there, but you know, this is the way it goes sometimes. Anyway guys, for now, be safe, take care, enjoy your sport. Remember, look after everybody around you, look after your permission, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.